not fast. Are you getting this?
Every bit of it. I really enjoy getting those.
Go Candy Campbell.
Now, the man that's spoken doesn't know that he'll either have, I guess he'll have to pray today. When I call this to order. It's so nice to be here. It's nice to have this pretty weather today. I catch people where I can catch them. I caught your grandpa came through the door one day just to see what this place was like. And we didn't have a program. And I heard that he used to sing a time or two. And I looked at him and I said, could you sing a song today? And so I hooked him. He's been here ever since. But I'm going to get him to pray today. Because I got somebody else that can sing with him. He's better. Not better, he's better at his health. Because he can lead us in this song. I call this meeting to order. And it's a pleasure to do so. Now I call on my friend Jim to lead us in prayer.
Everybody stand, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Thank you for each and everything, Lord, that you do for us. From time to time, God, that we just don't take time to even give thanks for. Thank you for this opportunity that we've met again at your place. And God, just bless this meeting. We might say and do the things, Lord, be pleasing unto thee. Forgive us, Lord, where we failed in and come up short. Forgive us of our many sins. Lord, each of us and bring us back at the point in time. These things we ask in the precious and holy name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
You come right on in, sir.
Sorry about
As
that.
long as you've got a chocolate cake, you can do it.
Yeah, oh, my ticket in.
You want to wait just a minute?
We're going to make everybody sit down and then stand back up.
No, let's do the pledge.
You want to do the pledge and then you're going to sing a verse of song. All right, he wants you to stand up, then you lead the pledge.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now you may be seated. Brother Harold,
Now, Chester, you know I'm not able to do it.
but you're going to do it anyway.
Well, I'll try to start it if everyone will sing. It's going to be Amazing Grace.
He's better. He's better, folks.
It's amazing grace that I am better.
Hey,
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we know this day to sing God's praise. And when we first begun.
thank you. He's better, isn't he? He's better. Harold has been sick and he said he had lost his voice. And we've been watching him and we decided he looked like he could do that. So the next thing I'd like to say is that we had a friend named Dave Frank. You know Dave Frank? You know him, don't you? Dave Frank. And whenever he passed away, I promised as long as I could remember, I promised his daughter that I would always mention him at the March meeting. So I declare this day another Dave Frank. We got him too late and he left too soon because he was a worker. He was a worker like some of the workers we have sitting right before for me. And I thank every one of him for all the work he do around here. As a matter of fact, sometimes I go home and I come back and I see a truck or a car parked somewhere, and I thought, one of our buddies is down here working. So there's always somebody willing to try. The only thing is, some of us is getting a little bit older, and we need some reinforcement, so, yeah. Okay. Now, we will have the secretary's report.
February 17th, 2019, regular monthly meeting at 2:30 with 23 present was called to order by President Wanda Cox Barley. Fred Gibson led the prayer. Sidney Jesse led the pledge to the flag. The Secretary's report was read and approved with motion by James Meltebarger and second by Fred Gibson. Treasury report by Martha Carter, and motion to approve as read by Dennis Johnson with second by James Meltebarger. No old business, no new business. Since February was the month of love, Jim Wood sung love songs, and his wife Diana gave out candy to the ladies. Speaker this month was Mayor Jason Bailey with several plans for the county. He shared with us. Motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a motion that we receive these minutes as read?
I make the motion.
It's been moved. Do I hear a second? Harold moves in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's done. All right, do we have a treasurer's report today?
Yes, you do. The bank account that was at Atlantic Capital has now been closed, but I'm going to read you. It was open until February the 28th. So this will be the final one of that one. There is no activity on it at all, and there was $5,657.33 in that checking account. When it was closed, that amount has been transferred to Century Bank. And that's where our checking account will be now, is at Century. In Century, for February the 1st, we started with $3,765.91. We had debits in the amount of $630.30. Debits, that was debits. Credits, $290 even, leaving a closing balance in our new checking account, $3,343.99, plus we have $20 that we don't show or don't do because you have to have a $20 deposit to open an account. So that's the way the checking account stands. And we did have a board meeting on the 14th,
Right.
and we got some success out of that, what will be happening maybe next year. Another thing, I want to check and make sure that everyone here that has paid and up to date on their 2019 membership, have you received your pathways?
If you've not received them, she wants to know if you haven't received them.
Yeah, because I'm trying to get all of our addresses up there. Well, the reason you're having is laying right up there. Yes. Yeah. If any of you have noticed, Dennis and James have been working, even though we got a few raindrops at different times. But they're the ones that are trimming all these trees and stuff right here at the back at our parking lot and to the side of the back of the building, so you can get where the heat and air units are. So that's
one
it.
of our good volunteers. And we even have people who mop and sweep and dust and take out trash and all kinds of things. I will. I'll take care of that. Do I hear a motion that we receive Martha's paper?
I'll make that motion.
You make that motion? Good. Second, Brady number 2, seconded. James, number 1, all in favor?
Aye.
Now, I'm gonna have to comment, and Mark will give me another sign. All right, thank you. All right, now we're ready for comments, events, and dates. This is the time whenever you all can help us out. I have a visitor here that says that she has a comment to make, and if you'd like to, you can do that at this time.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm here representing the Union County Operator. I'm not here to ask for any money.
We don't have any.
But Mr. Russell contacted me the other day, and he wanted to do a live feed for the names that you have out in front of the building.
Sometime later.
Sometime before the first show of the Opry, which is April the 20th. And I was going to ask if it would be okay if we could do it here in the museum. It would give you all some publicity to show that we're here. And I thought, what a better opportunity to have a live feed talking about our musical heritage that we have here in Union County. You have your Chet Atkins, Lois Johnson, Carl Smith, Roy Aiken. We never did get a chance to get clearance from Kenny Chesney, so we won't be able to use any of his information because of royalties and what have you. But we would like to do that here if it would be okay with the Historical Society.
In other words, you have a walkthrough and take the picture.
Either a walkthrough or we can bring stuff down, whatever Mr. Russell feels would be the easiest to do, and set it in front of us and, you know, give a little story on Mr. Smith and Mr. Aiken and Mr. Atkins and Ms. Johnson.
Well, now, there have been some people that have been gathering some history from that.
Yes, Miss Martha has done a wonderful job for us, and we really thank everybody that's helped us out tremendously.
You think that she could use those on that day if you asked her the question or whatever?
Well, we could possibly find out. I don't know what we're going to actually do,
Okay.
but that's what we're wanting to do.
Well,
If that would be okay with everybody here.
I would suggest that you do it from the second level, since that whole wall up there has everybody's stuff except the fickle that's sitting up front of Vegas.
Just whatever we can get with Mr. Russell and
Yeah.
the other Mr. Russell.
That sounds like an approval.
But we would really appreciate it, and like I said, a lot of people don't know what's in here because they've never been in here. I didn't know what was in here until I came in.
Well, I tell you what, you know what? I believe you're in a spot where you can help us, and I'll be talking to you about that.
And I will try my best, whatever I can do. But I'll tell you, like I tell everybody else, but I'm not John. I'm just a voice crying in the wilderness. And I will do what I can do, but I am very limited in what I can and cannot do.
Oh, don't underestimate the powerful woman. She's got something else to say.
I want to put on the floor a motion representing our membership that's here today, that it will be perfectly fine for them to come in and photograph from the walls and our artifacts that we've collected from those people.
Yeah, do we have a second?
No second.
You got 2 seconds.
No.
You want 3 seconds?
We really appreciate this, and we hope that everything that we're actually trying to do for the county will help us out.
And I see, I was gonna have a little publicity here, but don't even need it. There's a little folder that came out and see right here. Right here in the middle.
Yes.
So
We
maybe
all say
we'll
aye?
always have to be in there.
Would all say aye?
Y'all say
I
aye?
said me.
Say aye. Aye, the ayes have it, we're gonna have a little publicity right here.
But yeah, you need it. Everybody needs a little recognition every once in a while.
Wouldn't keep records for her for the world.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you all.
You don't need no.
You just remember where you're at and what you're doing.
I'm going to try my
That's,
best.
hey, that's a prayer.
And I've taken it as such.
She's another one of my girls. I tell you what. Okay, Does anyone else have events or dates that they want to mention at this time?
I think you need to make people aware of the Ramsey Community House, that they're gonna,
I will, because that's the first spark I saw in you, dear brother, whenever you was a dragon, you were running around. Yes. Do you know about the Ramsey House losing their
over East
their,
Knox County, over
funding?
near the, off of Johnsonville.
Yeah. Oh, okay. What's that?
Harold had open heart surgery. He did brain disease.
Old slave.
Okay, you want to speak out louder or you want to whisper? Tell them.
Pardon me?
I was your teacher 6 years, speak up,
Well,
sir.
don't tell everyone.
Tell them what you want to know about Ramsey House.
They, of course, you know how things are going with the funding for organizations like we have here. Some are being omitted completely, and theirs is one of them. They came to our tractor club and asked us to participate in putting on a show May 11th, which is Mother's Day weekend, and they said there will be flowers there for the ladies. It's going to be a free admission, tour the Ramsey House, and trying to raise some funds to keep it in operation. There are going to be tractors, antique tractor show, antique automobiles, vendors. Anything you wish to donate will be a donation. If you don't have anything or don't want to make a donation, that's fine. You're welcome anyway. But the object is to try to save a historical site and keep it open to the public. If it should rain May 11th, they've got a tentative substitute date of the 25th, wasn't it?
Yeah, 25th.
May 25th. So it's May 11th or 25th. And, yeah,
That's on what, day of the week?
it'd be, I actually haven't looked, it'd be on a Sunday, Saturday or Sunday, but it was Mother's Day weekend, so do one or the other.
Okay, anyone else with an announcement?
Wanda, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, I think I read where they lost their main benefactor.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes that happens. That's right. Okay, any other comments, dates, or any new business? Okay, go speak up.
I noticed this front out here, this overhead,
Uh-huh.
it must have leaked or something. It's just, some of it's about to fall. Somebody needs to do a little maintenance out on the front.
Okay, all right, we'll have to find somebody to come do that. Jenny.
And the status of the bathroom's being repaired. Ladies, we've got one out in the ladies now,
Okay,
and I don't know
well, as soon as
about.
Harold gets better, I'll put him in there, he can do plumbing work.
Was it a leak, or do you know?
I don't know,
Anybody
but we'll check that. Okay, leak in the ladies' bathroom or
Well,
something's
it's just,
wrong.
it's just one
Okay, and then
place.
the guttering in the front needs to be attended to.
It's the carnish or whatever you call that
Okay.
stuff and under there. It's not the gutter.
Well, we have discussed that, and we may have to take a different route with that.
I know, it's getting bad. Looks pretty
Okay.
bad.
Wanda, I talked to a man that's supposed to check that, and I never got him up here.
We'll go get him.
His name is Terry Collins. He promised me and promised me and promised me. But
Well, we
he
may
never
have
has
to
showed
change
up.
on a different high road or low road, get someone else.
Well, we need a piece of flash in the burp to keep that water from coming in and getting water. But how can you can't force him, he's the one who grew up my house, but when you can't get him up here, how you gonna get him up here?
Go after him.
You want me to take my gun?
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I'd like to speak some praise to everyone who worked on the heat and air system in this building. Had problems for a pretty good while, but right now, at least the last couple of months, seems to be great.
It's already been worth what we had to pay to get it done. Just, when you come in out of that cold air and it's at 66, you think you're just right close to heaven, don't you? Well, I'll tell you how some things are done around here. I've got a former student that she, or that student, she or they, if I ask them something and it's gonna be bad, she doesn't say anything. And then if I ask her and she comments, well, then I know how to go. So that's what we did, and that's what we got, and we got it fixed. And it's supposed to be fixed to last a couple, 3, 4 years now, so that we won't have to be looking at. Of course, you know, I made the smart comment, and I'm always making smart comments, that we had one preacher to put them in, then we had to call another preacher to fix it, but I believe that last preacher did get it fixed. Okay, so,
AAA Glass also came and repaired the front doors that was damaged during our festival. So the front door that everybody's been concerned about and whether they could get it locked and unlocked and not locked is now operable.
okay? Yeah, if we can just keep people from trying to bring big buggies in the front door, we'll be okay. All right.
And I noticed that we have several microfiche and other machines that are just sitting around. Do they work? Do we
Yes, they
need
do.
all? Okay.
Don't ask me how, but they do.
It's,
Ask the Snarley sisters, I think they know how to use them.
Well, I know we've got 2 in the hallway that are
Yeah,
not
it's
out.
just a matter of space, having, you know.
So
And
they are
a
working.
matter of your eyes, whether you want to use that type of
These over here,
thing. So there's some over here on the side.
Now, Fred and I didn't get that one to work.
Just keep it working, Fred. I've got faith in you.
I didn't hold my mouth the right way.
Okay, all
That
right.
was it.
Okay, dates, any dates?
You go good, can't you?
No dates, nobody want a date? Okay. All right, any new business? Any more new things? And I guess we've covered all the old, new business. Martha, since you know more about this lady that we have than I do, would you come up and introduce our speaker, please?
I'll be happy to.
Of course, I know a lot of good things about her, and she always smiles at me. So let's see, did you go?
I don't think she was my teacher, but I wish she had been.
Everyone seated here today knows who our speaker is and has seen her many times. She's the director down at East Tennessee Historical Society, and they're kind of like we are. If we hadn't had a Jean Tharp, we wouldn't have a society. If they hadn't had a Cheryl Henderson, they wouldn't have a society. So it takes some good workers to keep going, and many, many years, and I'm not even going to talk about the years she's been there. She has served them down there and served them well, but I've known Cheryl since before we ever put this society together, and we've traveled Sharps Chapel together and every other little crook nanny in this county. So she's come to tell you about something that happened a long time ago. I hope this is the same one you're going to speak on. In Knoxville, that has been revised and brought back to life again. So I hope you'll enjoy it. Cheryl Henderson.
Yeah, give her a hand.
What Martha didn't tell you is that my niece and her nephew are together. So,
Oh.
so we're practically kin to each other. Aunts-in-law, I guess you would say. When Martha mentioned Jean Tharp, it brings back so many memories. Jean and I worked closely together, and I think about all the people I've known here over the years. I remember Harvey Bridges when he came. People who did such wonderful work, and I think they would be so proud if they could see all of you, what you're carrying on, that you're building on what they did and making it even better, and they would be so proud. So thank you for what you do. I also enjoyed the beginning of your program. I enjoyed hearing everybody speak out with good ideas and really caring about the organization. But I especially enjoyed the hymn and the prayer and the pledge to allegiance. That's something you don't get a chance to do much anymore. So I really enjoyed that. So thank you for that memory that you created for me today. Martha asked me to speak about the Knoxville weather kiosk. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? I thought you you do. Okay.
They say that Martha and I can do that job.
And the weather kiosk? Oh, the weather. Okay. Has anybody visited the East Tennessee History Center? How many have been down there? Oh, a few of you have. Okay. Well, we're on the corner of Market and Clinch in downtown Knoxville. The core of our building is an 1874 old custom house. It used to house the post office when it was first built, and housed the post office, I guess until about the 1930s when they built the one on Main Street. Beside the History Center was a weather kiosk. And that's what I was going to tell you today. It's not one of those thrilling, exciting stories of people and events, but it has a very interesting history, and it's about, undergoing some things now, and the potential of having an even greater history now, and more influence in the community. The weather kiosk is back now. I'll tell you the whole story. Right now it sits on the corner of Clinch and Market beside the East Tennessee History Center. It's sat there for many, many years. The Knoxville weather kiosk wasn't unique to Knoxville. It was part of a national effort to place these kiosks in larger cities throughout the country. And they were known as weather kiosks. And the purpose was to put these weather instruments inside and to post weather forecasts on the other three sides of the kiosk for the benefit of the public. I was going to make a PowerPoint, but I thought for one image it might not. So I'm going to pass this around and let you all look at it. Just tap it with your finger right on the screen if it goes out. That's what it looks like now. Beginning in 1908, the U.S. Weather Bureau, which was a predecessor of the National Weather Service now, began to install weather kiosks in large cities to display weather data and make forecasts. The kiosks were 4 feet square, and 7 feet high, and they had 30-inch panels for viewing the weather information. The north side of the kiosk held the weather instruments. You could look through the window and see the actual weather instruments. And you're talking about 1912, so they weren't what we use today. But you could see the weather instruments there. Let's see. The other three sides of the kiosk were bulletin boards that displayed the weather forecast, climatic charts, weather maps, and items of local interest. To really understand the significance of the kiosk, we have to take ourselves back to the 19-teens. Today, we catch the weather on TV, the radio, the internet, and it's instantly available to us in our hands via our cell phones. But we don't think about back at that time how hard it was to access the weather, and especially accurate weather. While we might have to tell some young people, I don't think those of us here today need to be immersed in the history of that age to know, to have witnessed the changes that we've seen since that point. We have a tremendous advances now in weather forecasting, but it hasn't always been that way. The weather kiosk was placed on May the 4th, 1912, amidst great excitement. A later report described the occasion. A frame structure, which was part of a kiosk, weather recording apparatus, was placed in position on a pedestal of pink Tennessee marble on the southeast corner of West Clinch Avenue and French Street on the Federal Building Square. The Federal Building they're referring to is the post office and the old custom house, and it's the French Street is now Market Street. So those things have changed. The kiosk was used not only for weather postings, but also occasionally for big news that came up. For instance, the news from the home front and from the war in World War I was posted on that kiosk. And it was a place where, with so many people with soldiers overseas, they would come there regularly to check the latest statistics and casualties on the kiosk. So you can imagine what all took place there. The weather kiosk became a gathering place for people to discuss the weather, local and national events, and to pass the time of day. People would go, they would pass each other on the street. Well, what's the weather today? Well, I don't know. Let's walk down to the kiosk and look. And it became kind of a hangout place for people who had time to spend, and they would stand there. Eventually, the weather instruments were stationed on top of the Brownlow building, which was next door to the History Center. It was located on the Gay Street side of the History Center. But the kiosk remained the place where weather and news were posted. In January 1927, an article reported that Knoxville did not have the coldest weekend weather in the country, but it established one meteorological record in that it was so cold here that the recording instrument froze and stopped. The instrument is in the kiosk. It goes on to say the instrument is in the kiosk in front of the post office and is operated by a clock mechanism. And it says, when the breath of old Boreas, does anybody know who Boreas is? Is it somebody I've missed? When the breath of old Boreas, B-O-R-E-A-S, reached the most chilling point, the device stopped. A few days later, it was reported that the instrument was back in working order. So this was front page news at that time. By the early 1930s, it seems the kiosk was becoming less valued. I haven't yet found an article that talks about it, about the reasoning for wanting to move the kiosk, but I suspect that in light of new inventions and discoveries that people were making as far as recording the weather, predicting the weather, that these were, and the popularity of radio that was coming in, necessitated the replacing of the role of the kiosk in the community. It became obsolete. Over the years, though, many people had developed quite a nostalgia for the kiosk. It had played a role in their daily lives, and they were very fond of it. Events around Washington, D.C. Kiosk may help to explain several of the things about the fate of the Knoxville kiosk. In Washington, D.C., citizens began to complain about the accuracy of their weather forecast. Some days the forecast was as much as 10 degrees higher than the actual temperature. The problems, however, were not that the equipment was inaccurate. The problems were instead that the Washington kiosk was placed in full sun and the side of the instruments were facing that full sun. Plus it was between two tight buildings and there was not much air going through there. The Washington kiosk was in a handy location, but mostly for viewing the temperature, not the best place to record the temperature. And one citizen wrote to the paper in Washington, calling the kiosk a liar and guilty of false advertising. And he mentioned that the kiosk was a fireless cooker and should not be allowed to have a thermometer. People get passionate about some of these things like they do today when they write the editor. Back to the Knoxville weather kiosk. The old custom house opened in 1874, and the post office had been quartered there since that time. But somewhere around 1931, the federal government built a new post office over on Main Street where well, it's closed now too. No, it's not. It's part of it's still open. Sorry. They proposed to move the kiosk there. Well, in the Knoxville paper on May the 1st, 1931, in an article about the proposed news, they said, the kiosk situation in a nutshell. Word leaked out of the Treasury Department at Washington that the old kiosk might be moved when the post office moves to Main Avenue. The loyal sons of the Grand Old Knox Protective Association came into being, and they opposed any and all moves. Additional kiosks were also proposed. Knoxville residents are far from additional kiosk sites were proposed to move it. Knoxville residents were for moving the kiosk to Caswell Park, making it a cold drink and rain check dispensing stand. Other sites they proposed were Henley Street and Western Avenue for a stop-and-go light stand. They wanted on the Farragut corner for an apple vending kiosk combination for aiding the unemployment. I guess people could sell apples there and make some money. The newspaper sought the view of several citizens, and I'm not sure if these people were being creative or they were just having some fun. But there were some very creative suggestions. One citizen said, I think what ought to be done with the old kiosk is to fit it with a machine for telling fortunes. Then we could go to the kiosk, put in a penny, and find out what the future holds. Another said, I wouldn't think of moving the kiosk. Still another thought they should move it to the balcony of the Tennessee Theater, remarking that there were several seats available on aisle 2 in the balcony. Hubert Huff thought the kiosk would make a great peanut vendor. Ike Powers III commented it would be like losing an old friend to move it. Mr. Patterson of Jolly Cab Company thought it would make a great taxi cab stand. He said people get caught in the rain, at the post office would get caught in the rain, and they could whistle for a cab and it would be right there. It was also proposed, and I thought this was an odd one too, that instead of moving it to any of the mentioned sites, that it should be moved to the summit of Mount LeConte, where they said it could be the first monument in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And it could also be in the midst of as much weather as can be found in these parts. Members of the Smoky Mountain Smoky Mountain Hiking Club, to a man and a woman, offered to help them heave the kiosk up the mountain to the side. That would have been a nice story. Well, the weather kiosk was eventually moved to Greenway Cemetery in North Knoxville. You all know where Greenway is. They purchased it for, I think it's like $3, a very small amount. And they posted notices about upcoming funerals on the kiosk. Well, in 2007, Bud Albers, did anybody know Bud Albers? He was a local businessman, Albers Drugs, okay. Bud Albers, who was then the president of the East Tennessee Historical Society, got a bee in his bonnet to bring the old weather kiosk back to the corner on the corner of Clinch and Market, beside the History Center. So in conjunction with the opening of the new branch of the History Center and a new first class public, I'm doing this today. And the first class permanent exhibit, Voices of the Land. In 2018, ETHS received a grant. Well, it opened there. We did move it there, and that's where it sits now. We're very pleased to have it. At the time, I wasn't as familiar with it, and I've just read about it a little bit in history. But Bud, I mean, when Bud gets something, it gets to be in his body, he gets it. It doesn't be forgotten. And he worked on that so hard, and he got it moved there. And now we're thrilled to death that he did. It's quite a thing to have there beside the History Center, and gets a lot of attention.
Did he have to pay for it?
No, he didn't. Greenway gave it to him.
They lost that $3.
Well, I worked with Bud a lot, and if Bud wanted it, Bud got it. In 2018, the East Tennessee Historical Society got a grant from the Aslan Foundation, a Knoxville-based organization, to restore the old Knoxville kiosk with cleaning, a good color new paint, replacement of some hinges, and some other things that needed to be done to restore it. And it now stands proudly on its original site on the corner of Clinch and Market, originally named Prince. This is a very busy pedestrian corner. Knoxville has a lot of foot traffic now. People, there for tourism and business and all kinds of things. So it's a very busy corner, and it attracts a lot of attention. People are always stopping to read what we've put on there. We were contacted because of the publicity it got from the restoration by the Aslan Foundation. We were contacted several months ago by the National Weather Service office in Morristown. Apparently, they had got interested in reading about the kiosk, and they wanted to partner with us to seek a grant to fully restore the kiosk and to replace original weather instruments in there so that people could really see what they look like, and to develop interpretive signage to tell the story of its 117 years in Knoxville. One other resident there has moved to the corner beside the kiosk. Interestingly enough, it matches the same time period as the kiosk, so it was a really great fit. Some of y'all been following the women's suffrage centennial next year. I think it's the year. Well, Wanda Sobieski, has anybody worked with Wanda? She's like Bud. If she wants to get it done, it gets done. She really accomplishes a lot. She's working with the Suffrage Coalition here, and she wanted to put a statue there to Harry Byrne. If y'all are familiar with the suffrage story, Tennessee was the state that passed the amendment that gave women across the country the right to vote. It was tied in the Tennessee legislature. Young Harry Byrne, he was a young man at the time, had originally voted against it. And it was tied. It took 36 states to pass the amendment, and 35 had passed it, and Tennessee was next. But it was tied, and it didn't pass because it was tied in her house. But then they took another vote, and Harry's mother wrote him and told him to vote for it, change his vote to vote for it. So I said, I'm going to get a bumper sticker. Harry Byrne was the mama's for it. So he changed his vote, and it gave women the right to vote.
His mom actually slid a note in his pocket that said, "Remember the ladies."
Remember the ladies. Here's our young, here's who's next in line here.
That's my nephew.
Is it really? That's great. Well, Mwanda got a statue with Harry Byrne. Harry Byrne is sitting at a desk signing it, and his mother's standing above him. And it's right there beside the kiosk now. And it really gets a lot of attention. We devoted one of our windows telling that story of the kiosk and Tennessee's role in suffrage. So a large crowd attended the unveiling of the statue last year. And if you've been up on Market, Wanda has another statue to the 3 women, one from each division of the state, who helped pass the amendment, who were really large in the suffrage movement. The kiosk, right, it doesn't have that great a story to tell. I thought, well, what else am I going to talk about? Because I've told pretty much the interesting things about the kiosk. It's a very historic thing. There's only 100 that we know of that were ever issued. And we're the only one that sits on the original site. There's 2 in existence. One of them has been moved to somebody's garden, I was told, and the other one is the Knoxville one, and it's on its original location. So it's the only one of the 2 that's on its original location, which is quite a landmark, we think. If it's okay, can I veer from this just a little bit?
You can, I won't pay anymore.
Okay.
You get the same amount.
That's fine. I'm doing a talk tomorrow night in Jefferson County. That's where I'm from. And I'm doing one on cures and omens and superstitions. I grew up with a grandmother who was so immersed in all of that, and we couldn't move without her. Oh, you came in that door, you've got to go out, you've got to go back out that door. Some of those things, you know, snuff and spit on a bee sting, that kind of thing. I'm sure I just got to thinking, who can I talk to? I'm doing a talk on this, and I'm basing it a lot on my personal experiences, because most people I talk to don't have that, you know, in Knoxville, they don't have that kind of upbringing like I did growing up in Gobbler's Knob. And I would be interested if you all would just share a few of the things with me that you remember, that you've been taught, or that, and who taught them to you. And did anybody ever hear, I had a great aunt, and her husband died, and the summer he died, I was about 10, and I walked down the dirt road and spent the night with her every night that summer while I was out of school. And she would always, you know, she still had a wood stove at that time, and her ice box, not a refrigerator, but an ice box, and she always canned things. So she would get out some apples, a can of apples that she had made, and she would have biscuits left over from breakfast, and she would always get those ready for me to have a little bedtime snack. And she would always say, to bed, said Sleepyhead. Wait a while, said Slow. Put on the pot, said Greedy Guts, and we'll all eat before we go. Any of you all ever grow up saying that? Well, it really, I think what really got me is I was doing some research one time, and I got in the diary of Felix Walker, and this was about, it was in the 1790s. And here he is quoting that verse in the 1790s. And you realize this verse has come down. You know, how my grandmother got it, I don't know. She certainly didn't know Felix Walker. But it had to have come down in her family some way. And you go back, and then I read about it, and it goes back to the Middle Ages. So if it goes back to the Middle Ages, I think it's like 40 generations back that this has come down through somebody to reach us. And that just give me cold chills, because if you love history like I do, and you really want to touch the past and understand those people and know more about them, and so I felt that really did it. And my grandmother also liked, she believed in so many cures. One day she had a cloth band around her head.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, Mimi, why do you have that cloth band around your head? I thought she was trying to be an Indian. I was going to put a feather in there or something. She said, because I've got a bad headache, and that cures a headache. Well, I just chopped it off to Mimi, her cheap cures, I didn't think that much about it. And 3 or 4 years ago, it was all over TV and radio and newspapers that they found the cure for headache, that the head man will help alleviate a headache, And it made me start thinking, we are really touching the past with these things. And I got so excited over it. And I knew that people like you all would understand.
My aunt Ruth did that, and I was about 4 or 5 years old. She thinks that Harold back here was her favorite. That's another story. And so she had this tied around her head, and in my mind, as a 4-year-old, and we were sharing a house at that time because during the Depression, you'd rent a house and one family would have 2 rooms and another family had 2 rooms. And she came through and, she had a headache, and she had it around her head. And I thought that she had it around her to keep her head from busting wide open. Because that's what she said. Said, I've got a headache and I believe my head's going to bust wide open. And I just considered that she hadn't had that band around her head, that it was a pop
Lost your brains. That's cute. Does anybody else have memories of that? The headache band?
Did you have this in your family that if a bird came in the house and flew around, it's a sign of death?
I did, yeah.
Sorry, but what, Dave?
If a bird got in the house and it was flying around, it was a sign that somebody's going to die.
They used to bring the bodies home instead of to a funeral parlor, and they would always cover up a mirror or put the Bon-Ami to cover it so you could not see a reflection of a dead body in mirrors.
Yep.
We had that at our house that they do that.
Wow. Anybody else got any of the dying
We're
or
worried about
things that
them dead
predict
people, I'm
death?
worried about them alive.
Did you, they've always been a saying that if a dogwood blooms in October, November, and they do get confused sometimes, and blue, that there will be a death in the family, close related death in the family.
My mother's people were from Gatlinburg and Wares Valley, but she told me that she dreamed one night that all her teeth, she could pull all of her teeth out. And when she told that dream the next day, they told her it meant somebody was gonna die. Her daddy died just not shortly after, just shortly after that.
Oh, I know several that has cut down the dogwood tree that would bloom in their gardens to try to prevent deaths.
My grandmother would always say,
Whenever you want.
Hey, when do we want her back?
I'll give you a little poem that my grandmother used to say to me all the time. Now, she was born in 1884. At school, they always had spelling and a spelling bee on Fridays. And if they were going to have a program, the teacher would work up with different ones of the children. And they put on programs at school once a month. Although they only went to 3 months, so it wasn't long. The little one that she always did, and her teacher, Peter Keller, had her saying when she was 4, because she went first grade when she was 4, was, "Two little hands, so nice and white. This is my left and this is my right. Oh, what if I live as long as you? Oh, what these little hands will do."
Wow. I've heard that a long time. I forgot all about that.
Yeah.
That's neat. That's neat.
But she'd always do that, and then I'd go back and visit her, and she'd say, "Do you remember that? Well, let's hear it."
Yeah.
Anybody ever hear of a snake charming a bird? Grandma, you ever see it happen? You know, my grandma would say, come here, to the window. And I said, what is it? Look out there, that snake's charming a bird. Well, I couldn't even see the bird, I couldn't see what was happening. But I was always curious about that one. A cure for the thrush.
someone that never saw their dad that died before they were born could blow out a baby's mouth or someone's mouth.
Okay, great.
My aunt would, people would bring babies to her house and she'd take them in the bedroom. And then she'd bring them out and I didn't know what was going on for a long, long time.
Yeah, the seventh son or the seventh daughter was supposed to have that power, or somebody that hadn't seen your father was supposed to have that power. My brother had it one time. He was about 3, so I would have been about 8, I guess. And I remember somebody told Mom to take him over to this lady on the other side of the mountain from us, and we went over there. And she was an old maid. She'd never been married. Her brother lived there, and he'd never been married either, and they were quite old at the time. But Mom told him what was going on, so she told H.T., my little brother, said, come with me, and she took him behind the barn. And they were gone about 5 minutes, and they came back, and me always curious, what you do, H.T., what you do, what you say? And she said, I don't know. And I said, what does she do? She said, open your mouth. He said, I open my mouth, and she goes, whatever it was, it cured her. It cured him.
Actually, I had something done. I used to have a seawart under my thumbnail whenever I was little. And my uncle came up one Sunday to visit us. And my mom said, Euless, look at her thumb. He took his other thumb and he rubbed over the top of it. I have no idea what he said, but it was gone in about 3 weeks.
Well, what if they do if you had it?
I don't know. I wasn't old enough to have that yet. But it actually did happen to me, so I can attest that. Whether it's ready to come off or not, I don't know. But it did work. In my mind, it worked.
I had one on my knuckle of my big finger right there one time, and I found a sure cure. I was hammering some nails, and I missed the nail. I knocked that wart clean off of there, and it didn't come back, so that worked too.
Attest to that.
Did anybody ever use earwax for a fever blister, cold sore?
I've heard that.
That was my grandmother's. I'll have to tell you, I had them all the time when I was little, and she told me that. And I don't
Well, I'll
really
tell you right now, you know what they used to cure the earache?
blow we're married.
You want to take your inner pea.
I really
And they put one pea in the ear. Now, if I was going to use the wax to cure my mouth, I want to make sure whose pea had been put in that ear.
I I do not believe in that at all. I'm not somebody who believes these things, because I always secretly make kind of make fun of
I
myself.
used to make that one time.
I got it. But then when I tried it, if you get it when it first comes up, it disappears and will not come up. I went years and years without one. It's like a Breva. Anybody ever bought that?
Yeah.
Now I buy it to pay $17 for a little tube about that big.
Yeah.
Black snakes will kill poisonous snakes too. I've got a picture of one on my phone.
Yeah, I've got, she sent it to me, it's on my smartphone, but
I've got a rifle too.
Did you ever hear that when the snake is killed, its mate will come back and report at sunset?
Yes.
Who said that, Martha?
Yes, that will happen. Where I lived on top of the ridge over here of Pine Ridge Mountain, hoeing in the garden, we killed snake, which we call it. Part of people call them blowing vipers.
Mm-hmm.
Part of them call them spread heads. Okay, pulled it out of the garden and come right down to the patio and left it laying there with a hole sitting up at the side of it. And sure enough, when the sun started going down, one of us started out the back door, and there was the mate to that snake there with that snake, trying to pull it off. Yes.
Wow. This is fun. I'm glad we have some things in common. Has anybody think of anything else that's really well brought it up or not?
Whatever, acidity, something like that, I'm not sure that's the word.
That is the word, acidity.
They said they used to have to wear it around their neck to keep from getting sick.
Them babies.
Work on
Man, I put them on me and I put out the witnesses that have drama.
I think that could get people away from it, have diseases, and they stay away from it so that's the
probably all wore it, so that's just not in
Okay, when I was reading, I did kind of do some research just down online and see what people were saying and folk cures for things. And one of them was warts, and some of the cures sounded awful. I don't think I'd rather have a wart. But I mean, they were supposed to take an eel and cut its head off, and then hold the dripping blood over the wart and let it fall on it. Or you took a frog and impaled it on a stick and left it there and let it die, and then your wart would go away when the frog died. Or you put the frog in a bag and wear it around your neck until it died, and then the wart would go away. And I thought, I would never heard a frog like that.
I'll pick the water.
There's wart removal, they take a penny and rub on that wart and throw the penny away. And
Okay.
then post it.
That's a good one.
Yeah, Ford's sister-in-law does that.
All right.
Can you remember how that the old folks did not want you to do any work on Sunday?
Mhm.
You know, you don't sew, you don't do anything. It was, they always had, you know, saying against that, and just didn't ever do anything on Sunday like work.
The women always had to work and cook for
That's how the man got put in the moon, burning brush on Sunday.
Okay, everybody, every time I say the reason man got put in the moon was burning brush on Sunday, everybody said, I've never heard that. That's what we're always told too. So that's what, everybody agree? You put in there burning brush on Sunday? All right. I won.
You're in the right crowd today, aren't you, baby?
I could do this forever. I could have this time with you. Let's see, there's one more I want to bring about. What was it?
You also hide somebody's dish rag to get rid of warts.
Yeah,
Got it?
that's right.
Anybody ever hear if you get your belly wet when you wash dishes, you'll marry a sot?
I've never heard that.
Well, my mother, they told my mother that she grew up knowing that, I guess, and she did. My father was an alcoholic, so she always said that. I wish, I knew I was going to marry a sot because I get my belly wet when I wash dishes every time. These are fun. Sometimes though it's like with the fever blisters, you know, there's something there. You don't really know what. But when you get online, that's one of the cures that they talk about.
I said about that too, Mr.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm glad nobody told me that. You know, somebody mentioned death, death rituals, I guess, when somebody died and how they used to always bring them home.
And you'd set up with them.
Yeah.
When they were buried, somebody would always be there 24 hours a day.
I remember my great-grandfather, when he died, they just moved across the big garden from us. And I remember when he died, when I remember it, we just got electricity and we got to play outside. on the porch, because we never got to play outside after dark, and it got dark, and they let us, the kids run around out there. I remember that. I remember the first person that ever left at the funeral home,
What year did you get electricity?
1949. I was 4. Even more. What's it going to do there? I do remember when we got electricity, I spent the night with my grandmother, and we were across a great big long garden from them. And I was in bed, and my grandmother said, "They're coming tomorrow around your house." I said, "They are? What are they going to do?" I didn't know what that meant, or, and I doubt she did either, because she'd never seen, she didn't live in electricity. She said, "We're going to put some wires up." I said, "Is it like a fence?" "I guess so." And I said, "Well, can I get in to see my mom and daddy?" She said, "I don't know, but I guess." Well, that wasn't good enough. I started crying and crying and crying. And she took me home across the big garden. I still see her hair streaming down her back, and with a lantern going through the garden, taking me home. My mom and dad
You know what the local people call it? You got juice.
Juice, yeah. That was a fun. Well, thank you all. If anybody thanks for anything, Martha got my email.
Well, I just called you back.
Okay.
And you know, I have a little gift. I'm drunk.
Don't give her that same jar you drink now.
Her husband got his belly really washed
Make me sit. That's the longest since anybody's made me sit down and quiet start in, and I don't care. And you know, I always give a gift to the men similar to this, and I thought, gosh, and you know, we got our right to vote, so we've got our right to have things like this too.
Okay.
But then I thought, well, now since she's such a nice lady, I'll put a little something extra in. And the thing going around now is everybody has candles. So it has a little light, and you sure have put a lot of light on us today, and we've enjoyed it. So I hope you enjoyed it.
I love candles. I burn
Yeah.
all the time.
And-
Is that a
and-
lantern? Is that a lantern in there?
Uh-huh, and you can see it from a mile away. And if you're looking for a man, try to get one that looks like that. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
I have to take my granddaughter home across the garden and go down.
Somebody said, sometimes when my brothers are here and they'll do something and I'll have a little gift for them and so somebody wanted to record it or something and it was at the end of the meeting and Martha said, "You don't have to do that, this is something Wanda does." So you don't have to do this, Linda, you don't have to do this, that's something Wanda does.
I'm not looking at all this.
Thank y'all for having me. I really enjoyed this. Y'all love it.
Enjoy having you.
And I'm sure there'll be a lot of things that we think. You know, I would have given her my scarf when she came in, but guess what? She already found the
Three
place.
of us. We brought out Dollar Tree.
One of my students even have one from the Dollar Tree back there. How about that?
But I didn't give $1 for it.
All right, do I? Do you want me to declare my, and say the meeting's adjourned and we'll have refreshments, or does somebody want to do it? Make a motion and second vote. You want me to just declare it?
You've done said.
I've done said.